What's up guys, my name is Timbo, and look, I know what you're thinking, but before you crucify me for what the title is insinuating, let me explain. We live in a day and age where the word microtransaction has an almost unanimously negative connotation, much like chores, taxes, nails on a chalkboard, and Nickelback. But I at least don't really understand why. Sure, the microtransaction can and is used for some pretty shady business, and I am not in any way trying to say that I enjoy throwing all of my hard-earned cash into Activision's bloated pockets. I just believe that the microtransaction is misunderstood, not being used for the reasons it was created, and can actually be implemented for a great deal of good, so much so that in today's gaming society, if done right, the microtransaction is the best outcome for the average consumer. Before I get into what I want to discuss, I would like to welcome you to another episode of Here's Why. This is a series I started earlier in the year back when my channel had, well, let's just say fewer subscribers. So while my spike in popularity came from Destiny, these more general gaming videos is still something I want to keep going. I've been meaning to make this video for months, I just never got around to it. And I feel like with controversies such as Shadow of War, NBA 2K18, and Star Wars Battlefront 2 coming to everyone's attention, I felt this to be a pretty relevant time to finally talk about this. If you end up enjoying this video, let me know by leaving a like. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to view the full playlist, you can click the icon at the top right of your screen. So without further ado, let's get into this inevitable show. You see, a microtransaction is like a fire. If respected and used appropriately for its desired purpose, it can provide essentials such as light and warmth. Only when it is abused and contorted to unintended ways will it burn you. The microtransaction was created to allow a very specific type of developer to finance their game. What people have to understand is that it was designed for free-to-play games, not a game you pay $60 to $100 for. They have always been overpriced cosmetic items for the most part, but I don't think I'm wrong to assume that most people didn't have an issue with microtransactions when they were in games like Candy Crush because you didn't have to pay a cent if you didn't want to. This made the microtransaction be a way to support the developers you like, allowing them in turn to make more content for that game you like. But nowadays, with microtransactions tossed into basically every single game, the mere mention of the word makes people's blood boil. And this is the main point I'm trying to get across here in this video. We as a gaming community focus our frustrations toward this new, money-hungry, pay-to-win mentality many games have to the wrong thing. I do understand how difficult of a topic this is because at this point in time, there are so many different variables to consider. Many developers, as I said, implement microtransactions into their games, but many of them do so in different ways, and depending on how they're implemented will decide how much or how little each and every person is willing to tolerate them. Such variables off the top of my head that I can think of include the cost, if it's RNG based, if the items are only cosmetic or not, what genre of game it is, if the microtransactions will pay for DLC, the original cost of the game, if it has a season pass as well or not. These variables will ultimately decide how willing a customer is to buy that sweet Chloe outfit that hugs her booty oh so. Okay, I'm gonna stop. You forget I said that. Oh god. For example, I am not someone who would ever buy microtransactions in a game like Destiny. Not only does it basically force a season pass down your throat if you want to keep playing the game on top of having microtransactions, but bright engrams as they're called are completely random drops, like it's Vegas pulling the slot machine. So no matter how much you spend, there's no guarantee you'll get the item you're looking for. You might even get the same thing twice. Sure, they are all mostly cosmetic and don't influence gameplay, but in a game that's all about collecting, I find it pretty insulting that the most efficient way to get all of the loot is to pay for it. And I know that some people may argue that you can get the loot by playing the game naturally, but personally, I don't care. I think it should be obvious why they give you a bright engram every time you level up. They put you in front of the Eververse store over and over again to give you a taste, so that when you finally had it with not getting that ramen emote you want so badly, the buy silver button is right there like an old friend. Now, I don't really buy microtransactions to begin with, but if I did, it would be in a game similar to Titanfall 2. In Titanfall, sure, the skins are still overpriced for sure, but they are implemented correctly. The DLC is free, no season pass. You can buy exactly what you want, no RNG involved. This keeps the player base together, gives the developer money to make more content for their game, and doesn't force anyone to pay more than $60 if they don't want to. An issue that comes up when you implement a season pass in games like Call of Duty or Battlefield is that it kills the longevity of the game. Every time you charge someone additionally for a map pack, you split up your players. Some people have this map, some people don't. And when you multiply that by the 4 or so expansions a game like this will have, by the end you've created 5 different sections of players, which leads to a lot of dead and vacant lobbies. If you had microtransactions pay for these DLCs, then this problem is erased. So for me, it really does all come down to this. If I had to choose between having a game with a season pass and having a game with microtransactions, I'd choose neither. However, this is not the world we live in. At the end of the day, gaming is a business, and companies like Activision and EA are going to do all they legally can to maximize their profits while minimizing their efforts. And you can get mad at them all you want, but if you were in their shoes, you'd be doing the same thing. I don't care how morally right you say you are. If there's a way to make more money in this world, I think we'd all go for it. You can make the argument that you would be less egregious, but you can't tell me you wouldn't eliminate microtransactions and season passes out of the kindness of your heart. I like to think of myself as a good person. I'll hold the door open for people. I'll say please and thank you. I'll help little old granny cross the street. But if I were the head of EA, I'd be doing the same business practices, because the consumer is allowing it to happen. So in many ways, we are the problem, and you have to be aware of that. If one day people started boycotting microtransactions to the point where publishers stopped making money off of it, there wouldn't be microtransactions in games anymore. That is much easier said than done, and at the end of the day, everyone has the right to spend their own money how they want. Because no matter how bad you or I think this type of behavior is, trust me, there are much worse things you could be spending your money on than this. So what's the moral of the story? Well, I'd like to say that there's a world where we can live in without having to deal with any of this, but realistically, it comes down to deciding between the lesser of two evils. And in that choice, I've got to go with microtransactions over having a season pass, because that at least can lead to some good. I know certain games take advantage of this, but at the same time, in many instances, I find it relatively harmless. Sure, a game like Overwatch does have a slot machine mentality, but at least you can play the game just as good as everyone else without it, and you're still going to get access to new characters and maps. And I'd much rather have to deal with that than be forced to spend more than $60 up front on my game for maps that I might not even enjoy or will be completely empty in a few months anyway. I do get the frustrations behind the shameful implementation of microtransactions into a game like Shadow of War, as well as the pay-to-win mentality in games like NBA 2K18 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. And while I firmly believe, unfortunately, that this video won't change anything, the outrage caused by these games at the very least gives me some good news that perhaps the more disgusting examples of microtransaction implementation will be something the casual gaming market won't stand for. So go out there, support the games you like, don't spend a dime on those trying to wring your pockets dry, and f*** Activision.